Hey everyone, welcome back to another mock building video. Building clone bases is one of my favorite things to do, so today I'm going to be building a clone base for one of my favorite clone legions, the 501st. Let's build. So starting off with the structure of the base, I put some tiles down to mark the layout of where I'm going to be placing the bricks. I wanted to sprinkle in a little bit of 1x2 modified bricks, kind of the more like actual like real life brick looking pieces to just add some detail to the actual wall. And then I love adding some dark bluish gray slopes to the structure, so you know it's some detail. I placed a clone trooper so I could see how tall I wanted this base to be. I didn't want it to be very tall like in previous bases that I did, but I didn't want it to be too short to where, you know, the clone trooper, if they even just jump slightly, it'll hit the roof. So I think I found a good height for the, you know, there to be enough space between the clone trooper and the roof. I added one layer of dark bluish gray bricks throughout the whole build just for some extra detail as well, and to have a, you know, a color accent rather than it just be all light bluish gray, and to complement these slopes as well. And then I added some exterior detail. Now it was time to work on the roof. So going into this base, I wanted it to be, you know, since it's 501st, I wanted, you know, to have Ahsoka and Anakin as well. And I do have the most recent Ahsoka's Starfighter, so I wanted there to be a landing section for her Starfighter to land. So I made it completely smooth so there were no studs in the way. And then on the left side would be, you know, the various generators and just different roof details. Pretty much doing everything with this roof. Generators, turrets, I'm going to add a barricade for some troops to be up there, you know, to defend the landing pad so it's not really empty. But I do want to make this roof not feel empty and not flat either, even though it is completely flat. But I want to have stuff that's, you know, coming out of it, whether it's the generators or the turrets. And first, of course, I had to tile everything down on the roof, so I mixed a couple of plates and tiles because I didn't want to use all my tiles on the roof because I wanted to save some for the interior. Once I was finished with the base structure, and, you know, I'll add the details later, I wanted to focus on the landscape now, and I wanted there to be a pretty sizable river section in the left corner of the mock. So I pretty much used every single translucent blue piece I used because I didn't want it to be small, but I didn't want it to be too large either. And then I made some clear pieces, you know, for when the water reaches land. To go alongside the river, I placed a layer of dark tan plates, you know, to act as, you know, wet sand next to the water. Definitely needed some layering, so I was mixing around with different wedge pieces to kind of give it a little bit of detail and, you know, so it wasn't just completely flat. With the dark tan and river done, it was time to add the green plates to fill out every empty section of the two base plates. I wanted it to be a green landscape, you know, grassy planet, as, you know, I have a pretty good parts collection when it comes to, you know, grass, plants, and anything, you know, for a grass planet. So I always love trying to find new, you know, plant combinations and trees to make. So outside of the base is going to be a brief section. I added some grill pieces for like vents where I'm going to place a speeder bike and a couple of and a barrier for, you know, clone troopers to be there. It's kind of like a speeder bay area with some protection. So now it was time to add all the plants. So I was mixing in 3 different types of plants, like, you know, the 3-leaf pieces, as I like to call them, 3 stem pieces, and the really big 3-leaf pieces, and I spread them out, pretty much grouped them throughout the entire build, and I wanted to cover majority of the studs, so I really wanted this to be a heavily plant landscape. And now it was time to build the trees. I've done this tree before, but I wanted, since I got more of these 3 stem pieces, I really wanted to make more and taller ones. And now it was time for the interior. I wanted there to be a small raised platform with some stairs leading up to it where, you know, Ahsoka, Anakin, and Captain Rex would look at, you know, the main screen to assess, you know, whether any missions they need to do. And there to be a small section for an armory with some blasters for troops to get to, you know, go attack. And then I wanted to spread out a couple of more control panels and screens for clones to look at. And then I just added some crates just throughout the build, so it wasn't just empty. And now it was time to add the minifigures. This being a more bigger base, I wanted to really add a lot of 501st troopers. And here is the finished 501st clone base. I'm actually very happy on how it came out, especially with the trees and overall look of the base. So for the river, it was pretty much flat through the whole process of building, but towards the end I was like, you know what, I should maybe add a little bit of texture so that it's not flat compared to, you know, the landscape, where I added some levels for that as well, so it can all be more smooth and similar to each other. So I had a mixture of dark blue, light blue, and clear pieces for the translucent color, and so I combined all three to give it a little bit of coloring as well with the texture. I had more of the dark blue, but I made sure to kind of spurt a little bit of the clear and light blue throughout, so it has some smoothness to it, and it's not just one color overpowering it all. So I think it definitely turned out really good, and definitely is better than it just being fully flat. Now going over the tree, I'm actually going to take a smaller one over here, but it utilizes these 3 stem pieces with the brick modified with these studs on all 4 sides, and it's merely just stacking them up and going lesser as you go up. So for these smaller size, I started with 5 leaves at the bottom and then just counted up, or counted down more like it. But for the bigger ones, I started with 6 and then just added some more brick modified in between. And so, there's a different, I wanted all 3 to be a little bit slightly different in each way and being relatively similar in the same size, but I didn't just want to make the same one over and over again. I also wanted them to have them spread out, so I had the smaller one in front of the base. That way, it gave the clone troopers, a line of sight, but then I made the taller ones over here on the left side where there's not really much action. Here's a closer look at the grass pieces and the different types of plant pieces that I did, and then I did some with 2 on top of each other for a little bit of height difference rather than it all just being kind of level. There's a small clone trio heading out of the base to go on patrol. Now for the speeder area, here's a small barricade, a different variation from the one that I built in the last video and the one that's on the roof right now. This one is in a full dark bluish gray color scheme, and it's got some armor on the outside here, so it's pretty durable from blaster shots. I have 2 clone troopers standing guard. There's some crates here, and there was space for 1 speeder bike. This is the one from the 501st Battle Pack, so it is, a little too big for the minifigure, but it does fit perfectly kind of in this corner here. And then I have 2 clone troopers here checking the diagnostics on the speeder bike. Now heading up towards the roof, here is a small light turret on the left side which can spin to fire at any droids. There's just a mix of different generators and details up here, various vents throughout the base, so it gave a little bit of detail and greebling to the roof. And then over here are some fuel canisters, and then here is the heavy turret that utilizes the 4 barrels from the 501st Specialist Battle Pack, the cannon that came in there. I had a different variation of this one in my previous Clone Wars mock, but I tweaked it a little bit, and this one has 4 barrels, 2 on each side, so and it's on this pretty fortified turret base. So this is a heavy turret, and it can spin 360 degrees to fire at the droids any which way. And then on the right side is a longer barricade for the clone troopers. This is a different variation as well from a previous barricade I built in my last mock. I tweaked it a little bit, added a little bit more armor to it, and then I added the turrets in the middle here. So there's 2 clone troopers operating those, and 1 clone trooper on each side kind of standing watch in different directions. And then of course the landing pad with Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor. I just placed these kind of small pieces around to signify that this is a landing area, and you should step back when, Ahsoka is landing. Now into the full interior. Here on the wall, I made some pillars just for some wall detail. We have some clone troopers going to go patrol another area of the planet. We have a clone trooper looking at this screen here with a control panel. This clone trooper is getting some supplies from the crate. And here is the main screen with Anakin, Ahsoka, Captain Rex, and Fives all looking at the screen here on this slightly raised platform with the stairs, and I had some dark bluish gray plates kind of signify that this is the main command area. We have some more control panels and screens here for clone troopers to access data, and then over here we have some clone troopers leaving the armory armored up with their weapons, some clone troopers heading to the armory to get weapons, and then we have some clone troopers in the act of getting weapons from the weapon racks. And throughout the entire interior is some red tile and plates for the roof to be modular, so it's pretty easy to take off, but I also added that red layer to kind of give a red accent for the Republic colors. That is the full 501st clone base that I built. Like I said, I'm very happy on how it came out, and just the trees, landscape, and everything next to the base looking good. I really like building different variations of things that I've built in the previous, like, the different barricades and, the heavy turret, and along with building, adding some just different greebling to the actual roof to not make it flat. So it was definitely a fun experience, trying new things, and, that's what you always like to do when it comes to building these clone bases. So definitely was a very fun experience doing that. But definitely let me know down in the comments what you think of the MOC, and if there's any MOCs in the future that you would like to see me build. But anyways, that is the video, so definitely lightsaber slash that like button and hit the subscribe button so you do not miss any more LEGO content. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.